Hi, guys. Today on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast, we're going to talk about the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, and we'll get to all of that right after this. Want to learn about disciple-making movement methods and receive coaching to help you start one in your neighborhood? The Philosophy and Strategy of Disciple-Making Movements class teaches biblical and philosophical basis of disciple-making methods while revealing the strategies that are unique to DMM and Discovery Bible Study. Understand the specifics of what it takes to be part of a movement of God where you live. To learn more, go to christiannerdsunite.com/CDM. That's christiannerdsunite.com/CDM. Space is limited and not all that apply can be accepted, so apply now. Classes start September 16th. Now, back to the show. This week, I want to talk about the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. It's only been out for a little over a week, and everyone is talking about it. Lots of speculation and some things confirmed. But before we get to that, I do want to share some scripture. Let's start with Ephesians 6:10-17. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you've done everything, to stand. Stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all of this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take up the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. When we watch superheroes, we often see them battle forces that the general public doesn't even know about, protecting the world that is completely unaware. As Christians, we stand with the full armor of God, truth, righteousness, readiness of the gospel, faith, salvation, and the word of God. We fight against unseen enemies in our lives and those around us. Our prayers are a form of spiritual warfare, pushing back the dark. Sharing the gospel spreads the light of hope to a dark world that does not know that it's in peril, just like superheroes protecting the world. Obviously, all analogies break down, but I think this is kind of a fun one. And I hope you will take up the challenge to spread the light of the gospel wherever you go. Not sure where to begin? Go back to the beginning of the episode. Check out the ad about the Contagious Disciple Making class that's coming up. It's a great organization that teaches people to make a difference in people's lives with the gospel in a very natural way. You can also check out last week's episode where you can hear from the founder of Contagious Disciple Making. It was a great interview. Now, let's get on with the No Way Home trailer. Okay, so here we go. Right up front, we're going to get into some crazy speculation and some possible spoiler territory for Spider-Man No Way Home and for the fourth episode of What If on Disney Plus, starring Doctor Strange. So if you're concerned about that, this is your spoiler warning. So let's talk about the trailer. Unfortunately, I can't play it for you because I would probably get kicked off of everywhere because I'm not big enough or famous enough to be able to play somebody else's trailer and get away with it like some people are. But just kind of give you the basis of the trailer. you know, right up front, we're reminded that Spider-Man Far From Home, the previous movie, Mysterio announced to the world that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and then it appeared that Mysterio was killed by his own drones. Um, it's clear somewhere in the film that Peter is going to be arrested and questioned by the police or some other organization. Um, IMDb does list a Shield agent as being someone who's going to be in the movie, so we don't know exactly who's going to be questioning him. There are some vague rumors that we might see Daredevil show up, Matt Murdock specifically, as a lawyer. So maybe that could happen. I'm doubtful on that one. It's something I'm hearing, but I don't see that one happening. In one moment in the trailer, we see someone with a sign that reads "Devil in Disguise," and it's got Peter's face on it and devil horns drawn on it and a curly Q mustache. Now, some are speculating that could be a hint that Mephisto will be the real villain of this movie. And, that's something that Marvel has been kind of building up to a lot for the last, year. We keep saying that Mephisto is going to show up, but he never does. So, I'm not sure about that, but we'll get more into that here in a few minutes. Peter also decides to go see Doctor Strange for help. He goes to the Sanctum Sanctorium where we see Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange lives there. It's frozen over. We don't get an explanation for why, and we don't even get a comment about it being cold. The only thing that we even really get is we see Stephen Strange start a fire all of a sudden in the fireplace to warm up the house, and also he's wearing like a hoodie underneath his cloak, which is kind of weird looking. It's very strange, but it is a thing. So we don't know why it's frozen over. Some people are speculating this is a reference to Mephisto again. Could this be hell freezing over joke? I think that's trying a little too hard, but whatever. Peter asks Doctor Strange to make it so that Mysterio never revealed who he was, so that the world wouldn't know he was Peter Parker. And now Peter specifically says, can you make it so that he never did, meaning that he never told everyone? So that was his request. Now, Wong tells Strange not to cast that spell, whatever that spell is. And we assume that that's what we're seeing in the rest of the trailer. It's that spell. Wong says it's too dangerous. And Strange says, he won't cast it, but then he gives Peter a wink. So obviously he's going to. Now, that's a little odd, but, that's the interchange we get. So now Strange says that the entire world is about to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But that's actually a problem for Peter, because that's not exactly what he asked for. So this is kind of that monkey paw kind of idea. I asked for one thing, but I'm going to get something slightly different. I'm going to get what I asked for, but not exactly in the way I was hoping for. So that, we've got that kind of thing going on, because he says no one in the world will ever remember he's Spider-Man. But that's a problem. And, Peter still wants his closest friends and family to know. Now, I think that's kind of interesting, because if that actually was able to happen, does Doctor Strange stay out of that, or does Doctor Strange forget that Peter is Spider-Man? That's kind of a weird little catch in this. So, it's a little unclear what actually happens. Now, we see a montage of things, and it's super unclear exactly what all these different clips mean, but it definitely doesn't look good. we hear Strange saying that we tampered with stability of space-time and that we understand very little about the multiverse. Just a little bit earlier when he was casting the spell, he tells Peter to quit messing with the spell. So that's a little odd. It's like, okay, so if Doctor Strange is casting the spell, but Peter is talking, is that distracting? Or is Peter actually changing the spell when he talks? There's a lot of questions there, but it does get a little weird. There is a line where Doctor Strange is blaming Peter for trying to live two lives and that this is really all his fault. We also see a shot of Doctor Strange pushing Peter out of Spider-Man, which is another kind of unusual thing. We've seen that kind of thing happen before. We saw that in the original Doctor Strange movie. We saw that in the one of the Infinity War movies where the Ancient One pushes Bruce Banner out of the Hulk. So we've got some strange things happening there. And then we see what appears to be a pumpkin bomb. So we're expecting to see the Green Goblin. We don't get to see him. We do hear a laugh in the background. And then we hear Doctor Strange saying, "Be careful what you wish for, Parker." And so that's kind of a hint that you wished for something, but you got it, but the consequences were different than you expected. There's a term in a lot of social science. It's called unintended consequences. So anything that we do has many unintended consequences, some good, some bad. And this implies that they're all bad in this instance. And finally, we get to see the Dr. Octopus reveal. We see actor Alfred Molina from the Spider-Man 2 movie all the way back in 2004. We see him come as, Dr. Octopus, and he says, "Hello, Peter." So if the spell worked, why would Dr. Octopus know that Spider-Man was Peter? So that's interesting. We've known this was coming for a long time. It's been confirmed for months and months and months. Through the trailer, we also see Peter in the black and red suit, as well as the Iron Spider costume. There's your full armor of God. But we see him in the Iron Spider costume. So it's unclear as to when he changes or whether we're going to actually have two different Peters with two different Spider-Mans. I'm not sure what that's all going to look like. What we don't get is a Tobey Maguire or an Andrew Garfield in the trailer. So those rumors are still floating out there, but we don't get any of that in the trailer. But according to IMDb, if we can believe IMDb, and most of the time it is right in what I have seen. A lot of the times Marvel, as well as Star Wars, Disney in general, will not necessarily lie, but will put something slightly misleading on IMDb, or they won't quite include all the information on IMDb to hide some little secret. So, but IMDb says William Dafoe will appear as Norman Osborn or Green Goblin. And, that's from the Spider-Man movie all the way in 2002. That would be great to see him. We do see the pumpkin bomb in the trailer, and we do hear the laugh. So, that's a cue that he will show up at some point. That Jamie Foxx is supposedly confirmed. We don't see an Electro appearance in the trailer. There's some lightning. Well, maybe that's him, but Jamie Foxx is listed on IMDb. If it is the case that the higher up in the IMDb list you are, the more prominent you are going to be in the movie, then Jamie Foxx is pretty far down. So my guess is if we see a Jamie Foxx in the movie, which I expect we will, he will be a very bit part. He won't be there very long. Now, I'm always wrong about these things, but I don't think he'll be on there very long. The cast is so huge in this movie that I think we're going to see a lot of these people for a very, very short period of time. They're going to show up right at the end of Act 2, right at the beginning of Act 3, maybe, finishing up their battle, before we get to the big bad guy at the end for Act 3. Now, Paula Newsome is also listed on IMDb, does not say who she is playing. She does appear in the trailer. She is the lady that's in the car when Peter turns his head. Now, a lot of conjecture is saying that this may be MJ's mother, and that could be great. There is some other speculation that this could be Miles Morales' mother. I'm going to say probably not, since there's been no rumor about a Miles Morales showing up in the movie. If that rumor existed, I think it's more likely that she could be his mother, but I think she is going to be MJ's mother, or she will just be somebody completely unrelated, maybe a lawyer or something like that that's helping defend Peter. We will have to wait and see what that all pans out to. There is something there because Disney is not telling us who she's going to be, just that she's in the movie. At least 2 people from an organization known as Damage Control will be in the film. So that is a bit of a throwback to Spider-Man Homecoming. Damage Control is the organization that Tony Stark hires to clean up New York, and Damage Control gets into an argument with the man who will become Vulture in that movie. So, we don't expect to see Vulture here in this movie, but at least there's kind of some connection to that. There's no real hints of Sandman, so it doesn't look like we're going to get a solid Sinister Six, although we do kind of have hints to most of the classic Sinister Six villains. Mysterio's there. We've got Green Goblin, at least in some form. We have Electro. We've got all these people. We're getting really close to a Sinister Six, but I don't know that we're quite there, and I don't know that we're going to get there. The big thing in this trailer is the spell itself that Doctor Strange casts. It is very unclear as to why he chooses to do it. Wong very specifically says, "Don't do it," and he winks at Peter and says, "Oh, I won't do it." And what does that mean? Does that mean somebody else is going to do it? Does that mean that Peter really casts the spell and not really Doctor Strange? This seems to be a more reckless version of Doctor Strange than we've seen. Initially, when Doctor Strange shows up in the first movie, he's somewhat reckless and he's doing some strange things. But gradually through the movies, we've seen him be much more reserved. So are we going back to this much more, anarchistic version of Doctor Strange, or are we seeing something different? In the trailer, he seems to blame Peter for everything. And that's pretty clear in the dialogue. The big question is this really Doctor Strange? That is the question of the day. Just like last week, we saw an evil version of Doctor Strange in What If? And you may go, well, but that's What If. That's a cartoon. Marvel says that What If is technically considered canon because of the multiverse. So it's not that this Doctor Strange is some variant that doesn't really exist. No, it is a Doctor Strange that actually absolutely does exist, just in a different multiverse. So what do we have there? Are we going to see an evil Doctor Strange variant? Did Doctor Strange get into a fight with Doctor Strange. We're going to find out Doctor Strange is locked in a closet somewhere. Is there just something wrong with him? Some problem with him that's confusing him? We don't know yet. Or is it someone else in disguise? And this is the speculation that a lot of people have. And this is really where the Mephisto rumor mill goes crazy. Some are saying that that is not Stephen Strange. That's not Doctor Strange in the trailer initially. And that's really Mephisto in disguise. Remember the sign earlier that was a picture of Peter that said devil in disguise. And then we've got the Sanctum Sanctorium, frozen over, hell freezes over kind of idea. I think it's a bit too much of a cliche. This is actually the main reason that I read Ephesians 6 earlier, because the principalities and powers, things unseen. But this one makes sense. It really does work. But it's like the trailer is trying too hard to make us believe that it's Mephisto. It's like, okay, we're going to tell you over and over again, obviously this is Mephisto, but it never pans out. I've been wrong so many times when I have followed the breadcrumbs. So this one time I'm not following the breadcrumbs with everyone else. Now, it would have some comic book reference, there is some history there. The One More Day storyline does see Spider-Man do a deal with, the devil, with Mephisto, or Marvel's equivalent thereof. I just don't think this is where we're going. I don't think that is what this story is going to be. Now, a recent rumor, and I really don't believe this one, some are saying that it is actually going to be a Loki variant. This particular rumor is coming up because there's another rumor that just popped up that Sylvie and Mobius from the Loki series are going to have a cameo in the upcoming Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness film. I don't know if they're going to show up in that movie. There's no reason they couldn't. It makes sense. Why wouldn't they? But I don't feel like that's a good reason to say that the Doctor Strange that casts this spell is actually a Loki variant. I don't think this one is very likely. It is fun to think about, but I don't think this is going to happen. Now, if it is someone else in disguise, then I would expect that the real Doctor Strange is going to show up at some point, somewhere in Act 2, and try to fix it all. And maybe that is why he is blaming Peter and not himself for casting the spell. I don't really like any of these options at this point. Now, every time I go down one of these Marvel trails, these breadcrumbs that get laid out, I'm wrong. Every time. And it's much more straightforward than that almost every time. Much more straightforward than everyone's expectations. Now, if that is the case, then Doctor Strange really is doing a spell that Wong warned him not to do, and Peter interrupted somehow and caused a problem in the spell. I really don't like that option either, but the Marvel track record, it seems the most likely, because every time it looks like Marvel is pointing us to some cool twist, they go, just kidding. Really, it's just wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. It's exactly what it looks like. There's nothing. There is no man behind the curtain here. So what do I really think will happen? So I don't know that this is going to happen. This is what I hope will happen. This is my prediction that is sure to go wrong, as the guys over at Reverend and the Reprobate say. It's not so much a prediction as a speculation that I hope is true. And remember, my track record is pretty bad on this stuff. What if Doctor Strange is really Nightmare? Nightmare in disguise. Now, if you're not familiar with Nightmare, Nightmare is a Marvel Comics character, a villain who lives off the energy of people's dreams. And he has fought lots of different Marvel characters. He is very closely tied with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man multiple times. So that kind of fits. Some people speculated that the big bad in WandaVision was going to be Mephisto, and then others speculated that it was going to be Nightmare. But it wasn't. And it was exactly who they said it was going to be in the show. And it was really straightforward. And there was nothing there. There was no there. Is it possible that No Way Home, it could be Nightmare? I think it's possible. Now, why? Like I said, there is some comic book precedent for Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Nightmare to be tied together. Now, the strongest bonds there are actually in the Marvel Ultimate series. There are a couple of storylines in Marvel Ultimates that involve Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Nightmare. If you're not familiar with the Marvel Ultimates, it was a separate Marvel imprint, and there were several titles in the Ultimates, including Ultimate Spider-Man. All the Ultimates titles existed in the same shared universe, but it was a different continuity than the one from the main Marvel comics, the 616 universe. As a side note, Ultimates imprint is where we got the Samuel L. Jackson inspired version of Nick Fury in the comics. Before we saw Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury on the big screen. Now, in the Ultimates universe, Nightmare has shape-shifting abilities similar to Loki. So we've got that going on. He could disguise himself as Doctor Strange. We have had hints of Nightmare. As I said, there were some people that speculated Nightmare was going to be the villain in WandaVision. We hear Mobius mention the Nightmare department in the TVA. So, there's that other reference to Nightmare. We also, this is kind of just a little bit of a stretch, but in the 4th episode of What If, we hear as Doctor Strange is saving his girlfriend, we hear her say, "This is a nightmare." And so where are we going? I don't know if we'll get there, but I kind of like this idea. Now, in one Ultimate storyline, Nightmare actually possesses the body of Doctor Strange, and then he torments Spider-Man with his biggest foes. I think this actually makes a lot of sense based on what we know from the trailer. There's nothing in that idea that doesn't fit with what is happening in the trailer. As much as I don't want the big plot twist to be it was all a dream, it all fits with the Ultimates version of Nightmare, and I can see it all now. Peter puts on some ruby slippers, clicks his heels, and says there's no place like home 3 times, and he wakes up and there's Wong and there's Doctor Strange looking at him, and he says, and you were there, and you were there. Sorry. But it does all fit. I don't think it's a super stretch. It really it's a pretty smooth connection. I kind of like this idea. I'm probably totally wrong, but I'm sticking with it. When anyone asks me what my predictions are, this is going to be it. That the big bad is really Nightmare, and that this is all Nightmare's fault. That Nightmare was who Doctor Strange was at the beginning of the movie, and that Doctor Strange returns at some point to help defeat Nightmare. I know that's some wild speculation, but it was kind of fun to go through all of that. That's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, click all those buttons down there, whatever links are down there. Also give us a review. We would love to hear from you. Send us a review or write a review in whatever podcatcher you're using. And, you can find all of our social links, our online store, and links to our YouTube channel at ChristianNerdsUnite.com. And while you're there, click on the support tab. We'd love to have you as a Patreon. Before we go, I do want to leave you with this blessing. May the grace of God uphold you. May the peace of God surround you. May the love of God flow from you, and the strength of God protect and bring you safely through this week. We'll see you next week. Blessings.